Hi, everyone. Welcome to A New View. I'm Juji, and I'm here with Kim, Lee, and Shira. We are four friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. So today we're talking about triggers. You get a trigger, and you get a trigger, and you get a trigger.
Oh my God, it's the triggering. Stop it.
Who wants to talk about their triggers first?
Oh God, where do I even begin? I can go first. One of the first triggers that comes to mind is when I was growing up, because I think a lot of the triggers come from our upbringing and things that frustrated the bleep out of us. And one of the things for me was, I felt like my mom didn't necessarily, especially as a teenager, I felt like she may have heard me, but I didn't feel heard. And sometimes I would express things maybe in a more like dramatic way. And look, you live, you learn about how to handle teenagers. Nobody gives you a handbook. But my mother would say, don't say always, or don't say never. Or when you ask a question that starts with the word why, you don't really want to know the answer. Like I would say, but why can't you listen to me? Or why can't I do this thing? And she would just go, when you ask a question that starts with why, you don't really want the answer. And I would literally want to rip my hair out of my head. I'm like, I want the answer and I want it right now. And I know when we were preparing for this, that we did talk about the always never thing, because that never goes over well. But when you're a teenager, you're actually trying to get a message across. So if I would say like, you never listened to me. Oh, I never listened to you. And it's like, okay, I'm just saying it now because I don't feel heard, hardly ever. So it's just the not feeling heard part, because when you can look past that and go, oh, this person's frustrated, they need my attention on this matter, our egos get in the way and then all hell breaks loose and no progress at all. But that used to trigger the absolute crap out of me.
I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I'll start with one of my triggers. Also, there have been times in my life, and my mom on the one hand has, here we go, back to mom. I have a feeling there might be a pattern here. Just a warning, everybody. No, but like my mom in many ways has been a really good role model, right? There are many things, that I feel that I look up to and I am very proud of her for. But there were other things, and I think it's because of the way that she grew up is that she needed to feel strong and be strong and appear strong. And so anytime in my life, not anytime, but there were several times in my life where if I went through a very tough situation, whether it was a breakup with a guy, when I was younger, or later on, if I was having a health situation, it was like, be strong, don't cry and be strong about it. And I didn't know initially that it was a trigger, but it was the feelings that I was feeling that were like, why? It was like so limiting my own emotions. It was like what I was feeling was wrong. It was wrong of me to feel fear or sadness or, all of these questions that I had in my head, and just be strong kind of almost eliminated all that. It almost told me like, don't feel anything. Just be strong. And until I became an adult, and I kind of realized that this was not really something that is healthy. And it's okay to feel your feelings or to be vulnerable or whatever it was, but that be strong part of it, where I think a long time ago, I would have said, I'm so proud of myself for being so strong, that there was a major shift with that thought in mind to my adulthood now.
Wow.
Fuck being strong.
Yeah. Seriously. Strength is overrated.
I was going to ask, like, how is that carried out in your adult life? Like, when you're in a situation and like, do you have this little voice in your head that's like, be strong? And are you like, no, I'm going to cry?
No, I've gotten over that. I know it's okay to either cry or yell or do what I need to do and then get over things. I mean, listen, I don't like to dwell on things, and I'm not one to sulk and sit there for days on end. But when we are going through situations, or when I go through a situation, I allow myself to feel my feelings, let them come to the surface, try to identify them, and then, make it okay, and then get over it somehow, get past it. So no, it does not affect me like that anymore. But if I heard it again, like, be strong, I think today I would also allow it to just kind of roll off of me, like, really?
Yeah, right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next.
Well, that's where
what I think the universal trigger actually is, like, chill out or relax. For women, that's like the universal, like, just forget it. It's like, there's no coming back from that. In a conversation, it's like, okay, I'm going to go chill over there.
It's so true. Speaking of moms for the moment, that's one of my mom's biggest triggers. Cause I remember my siblings and I, and if we ever did tell her, like, no, just relax. And she would get so pissed off. She's like, do not tell me to relax.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
or calm down.
How about be strong?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
I don't think I ever tried that one.
But can I just say something that you're all going to be like, because we're just talking about mothers, but we're talking about things that our mothers say that trigger us. But one of the hugest triggers, and I'm just going to reference it because it was in my marriage, and I'm sure I did it too. But then when I became aware of it, I'm like, never again. And I didn't, is, that reminds me so much of your mother. Oh my God. That was so freaking triggering. I'd be like, I am me and she is her. And don't ever say that to me again. I think when you're in a relationship, especially for a long time, and when you do or are familiar with family patterns, that is so counterproductive, because you're completely dismissing the person that you're talking to, and you're just going, you're like them, therefore bad. And it's just like your own belief system that you're like, you can't be an individual. I just remember when that was said to me, I probably got triggered because and I'm going to sandwich it because we just did a whole episode on It's Not What You Say, It's How You Say It. So if my mom is watching this, I love you. You're so wonderful. Look, she did raise me and she gave me a lot of good qualities, and she's a survivor and she has a great sense of humor, and she's strong in her own right. But I think emotionally and on a connecting basis, I felt like when that was said to me, like, you're just like your mom, maybe there was a fear inside of me, like things that trigger us, like, do they trigger us and make us mad because there's a layer of truth in there? Or are we afraid that the trigger is true? Like, I'm trying to unpack it for a second. Like, why do things trigger us?
Well, there's a difference between triggers and uncomfortability. Like, there is a big difference. Like, you might have had, there might be like this old memory. I'll use my husband as an example. Him and I were having a long talk this morning about triggers, because I really don't know what his are. And what I think are his, I don't think they're really triggers. Like, I don't know. But anyway, long story short is, in his past marriage, she was mentally ill. So he never in their entire 10 years together felt like he could do anything right. So if there was ever a time with me where he felt he disappointed me, he was devastated. Like, he can't handle that. And he's so scared to do the wrong thing because he's never felt he could do the right thing from like years of conditioning with her, or just not conditioning, years of like just bad memories, uncomfortable memories, So, but I don't necessarily look at that as like, oh, me saying to him, like, that's disappointing. I don't really ever say that to him. It's rare. But like, if I ever did say to that, oh, that's disappointing. Yes, I know it's going to trigger him, but I don't necessarily look at that as a trigger. When I think of triggers, I think of something that you've experienced in your life, that when something similar happens or arises, or, whether it's words being said or an actual physical experience you're having, it's like there's this like stuck memory from that thing that was said to you or happened, like people, people who fight in the military have PTSD, right? It's like, that's real. That is like a really tough, real thing. And so I kind of look at it like that. I'll just piggyback on what I just said. I have two triggers, one that I'm still dealing with today that I think I'll always deal with to some extent. It might be easier for me today, but it just gets better over time. And then there's a trigger I have that is like healed, I think healed. The one that's healed is when I was young, my dad, you guys know, was an alcoholic, and he was a very reclusive alcoholic. So, and my mom worked all the time. So she was never home. I mean, it's not 100% true, but like, all I remember is feeling like abandoned in a sense, because even though my dad was home, he wasn't present or in the room with me a lot of the time when he was drunk. So I didn't know I had an abandonment issue at all.
Yeah.
Until like years later when I was in therapy and I was wondering why I was like sabotaging my friendships. If a friend of mine and I spent a lot of time together, we were besties, and then she started dating somebody and sort of like was all about that guy and didn't spend enough time with me. I was in so much pain. It was like so emotionally uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. It was as bad as like dating someone for 10 years and breaking up. Like it was like true heartbreak. And I knew it was wrong. Like I knew it wasn't right. I knew that wasn't normal. I knew that there was something wrong inside of me. Like, why am I taking it this badly? And my therapist years later explained that I had this abandonment issue. And I was like, oh, it makes so much sense to me. I just want this person to love me and like give me attention, because I didn't get that at home the way I needed to when I was growing up. So over the years, it really affected me with men, because as I was dating, if a guy wasn't into me and I really liked him or whatever the situation was, like that abandonment trigger would pop in and give me so much freaking anxiety. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I would know the guy for like 3 dates and I'd be like totally not taking it well. And I'm like, what? And like I said, over the years going to therapy, I started to understand it and have this awareness of it. And that really, really helped me. And over time, I met my husband. There was nothing to doubt or question. I have my tribe of friends. I don't go through all that girlfriend, boyfriend stuff the way I used to. So I've matured and grown up. So I do feel fully healed from that. Doesn't mean it can't pop up one day again. I don't know. We'll see. But I feel pretty good about that. The trigger that I am still dealing with, that I think I always will to some extent, is feeling stupid. You guys know that when I was growing up, my mother told me I was stupid. And she didn't say it in a malicious way. It was more of a, oh, Kimmy, you're so stupid. And it just kind of came out of her mouth like, no big deal. And I know I've had this conversation with you guys like a million times, and I'm not saying it like it's just no big deal. I know it's a very like terrible way of parenting. I am very aware. I'm also 45 and I now live under the same roof as my mom, and I'm going to take care of her as she gets older, and we have a completely different relationship. So there's been a lot of forgiveness there. So like I'm standing in a very different place than I was when I was like 12, right? But that sentence, you are stupid, still bleeds into my life today. I mean, Juji, it happened to me last week when we were having our business, or we were having a call. You kind of snapped at me and were frustrated with me in a moment because you were like, you said you didn't sleep the night before, like, right? Like any friend could have frustration with me, or an employee or something, right? Could be like, show me frustration, or maybe not fully approve or show excitement in something that I'm sharing with them. Like it could be any little thing. It happens all the time in my life. And I think it happens all the time to just help me heal from it, honestly. And I'll just walk away and my mind will go, you're stupid. And I'm like, doesn't mean I'm stupid. They did not say that. That's just my ego trying to keep me small. Like it's like this constant conversation I have to have with myself. But it does trigger me still to this day, but not as severely as it used to. I would probably, if I, let's say, submitted a piece of writing to somebody in the past in high school or something, and like felt I got a negative reaction and felt stupid, I would like not submit something again to them. I would do whatever I had to like appear smart. Like I would go out of my way. Today, it's like, I just have that conversation with myself. I remind myself it hurts, but I have this awareness that I didn't have when I was younger. Okay, I'll shut up.
That's so important what you just said, Kim. The way you're so, I think this show is important because when we get specific about things that are true for us or things that happen to us, there's got to be a relatability. Like, you know, I can relate to some of the things that you're talking about. You know, having that insecurity, which we all have to varying degrees. But when you're told something over and over again when you're younger, it does seep in, and you need a crowbar to really like start. And like you said, I don't think it ever goes away, but being aware of it and realizing that that's affecting how you're treating yourself, which is how you show up in the world, is such an important parenting thing. So I really appreciate your vulnerability and you're talking about it in such specifics. I think it's really helpful.
And aside from also just being told something where it's a trigger, I think kind of like Kim said, we have experiences that are sometimes traumatic that can trigger us. And I have an example of that as well, where, and this still seems to trigger me, and I don't know if this one will go away, but my mother was in the hospital once. It was 1999. She was in the hospital. She had pneumococcal pneumonia. She was away overseas. She felt sick. They thought it was a flu. She stayed in her hotel. They thought she just had some kind of flu. And she stayed in a hotel room for 7 days straight, lost like 10 pounds. Like she was just not well. And they didn't know it was pneumococcal pneumonia, which could be deadly. And she somehow made it back to New York. And I remember seeing her the day she got back from the airport, and she looked terrible and emaciated. And I took her to the hospital. I took her straight to the hospital. They took her oxygen, and it was so low. They were like, oh my God, like, how is she still alive? Like, had it been a few minutes later, she could have died. Anyway, long story short, incubator. They zoomed her into a room, oxygen tanks, all of it. And then she was out of it for 3 weeks. My mother's arms were tied. She had an incubator, all of this stuff. Now, for the 3 or 4 weeks, she was in ICU before she finally got up and got out of it. Thank God. It was a whole big miracle. But for the time period, I remember myself and my sister and my brother, we were sitting in the ICU waiting room, and we kept on hearing all these beeps. Now, when you're in the ICU unit in a hospital, you know, it's not fun at all. People are wheeled out on a daily basis, dead. And that scared the shit out of me. And we also didn't know, like at any moment she could go. But the beeping, the different varieties and cacophonies of sounds of the beeping in the ICU unit. Every time I would walk up and down the hallway, the beep, 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 down, beep, 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 or whatever combination of melodies these beeps had. I'll never forget that one day, this is months later, my mom's out of the hospital. She was recovering, thank God, on the mend. And I heard something beeping in a house, I think. I don't know what it was. So the dishwasher was done, you know, with its, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh my God. And until today, when I hear a succession of beeps, it's a trigger. It induces like a little bit of anxiety in me, you know, until I realize, okay, it's fine. I'm not in a hospital setting. No one's dying, you know, but this is what my brain, I guess, correlates it to. It's wild.
Wow, that's like smells can trigger things a lot of the time. It's like the sense most tied to memory, like good and bad, kind of.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not really sure I'm going to follow that one, Lee, because that was a really good example, and all of you have had such good examples. When we were talking about triggers in this as like a possible topic. We all were immediately like, yes, this is a topic that we have to do. Absolutely. And the first thing that came into my mind is, of course, a trigger I have with my mother. And honestly, I think the reason why it is for women all connected to their moms is because, you know, the first person that you really want approval from as a child is your mother. They're the ones like modeling for you what it means to be a woman, who you will one day be. And so if they are not mirroring back to you, like what you hope that they see you as, even if 99% of the time they are loving on you and praising you and being kind mothers, it's like you focus on the one thing that doesn't immediately reflect that back to you. So you can't like avoid childhood trauma or triggers or anything like that, because there is no such thing as a mother who is perfectly loving to you like 100% of the time. I was going to say 99.9, but 100% of the time. And so, you know, my mom was really great at praising me at times when I was doing a good job, and she, you know, approved of what I was doing. But sometimes something would happen between either the two of us or me with somebody else. And she's a person who needs a pause. She's a person who needs time and space to really get her thoughts together in order to constructively guide whoever it is that she's talking to. But she would always want to do that for me in the moment. By the way, we've completely deconstructed this between her and I. So that's why I like have such clarity about what went on now, because it was really important to me to sort of get past this with her. So she would immediately react, and the reaction never came out as like a constructive feedback. It came out as like something that I could barely understand, to be honest with you. Like, I wouldn't understand why she was upset with me. I wouldn't understand like what she felt the solution was. I didn't understand any of it. So in my frustration, I would always like yell back at her in some way, like I like literally yell or raise my voice in some way. And of course, my body language was all over the place and like just getting really heated about it because of this frustration. And then the trigger now was, you don't know how to take criticism. I don't know where you get this from, that you don't know how to take criticism. And I was like, and I think the reason why that was so triggering to me is because I knew it wasn't true. I actually do feel like I take feedback. Well, hell, I chose a career in art for a really long time where literally all you do is critique each other's work. And the number one rule of critiquing somebody's work is make it constructive. There is no such thing in a professional critique as, I don't like that. You have to back it up. And if you can't back it up with something constructive, with how somebody could have done it better, or somebody could have done this or that, then you don't say anything at all. Because in fact, most critiques, if nobody's saying anything, that's when you know the work is really bad, because it's because nobody knows what to say to make it better. So what would end up happening in this relationship or in our dynamic is that, okay, I would yell, she would yell, she would tell me that I don't take criticism well, and then we would both go to our corners and sulk. And then days later, when she mentally had like gone through and put all of the pieces together, she could then come back with the constructive, either I'm sorry, I didn't I didn't think that through. And this is what I really meant when I said those things. And I would be like, okay, great. I can work with that. Okay, great. I really appreciate that you are, you know, like circling back to this subject, because I was just over here stewing on it. So now when something happens, I either say, do you need time to think this through? Or do you want to ask me questions about that? Because a lot of the time it felt like she was just assuming a lot of things about a situation, and then like, you know, mirroring the assumption to me, where I would be like, that's not how it is. And then again, I would get the, you can't take any criticism. And I would be like, that's not even a criticism. So like, I'm not saying it never happens in our relationship. Conditioning, like Kim said, is something that is like a reoccurring pattern. So to undo that is really challenging. But being able to catch yourself in the moment with that, like, hey, mom, I'm going to tell you about a situation. I invite you to ask me questions about it. And then like, let's talk about it in 2 days.
So good. Juji, that is so good.
Juji, has that like completely transformed your, oh, sorry, Shira.
Oh no, go ahead.
I just want to know, has that completely transformed your relationship with her? Just you being aware of that and being able to, you know, express that, like say that to her before, you know, it's like preparation, which you never had before.
It absolutely has transformed our relationship. And it sounds like that was like an A to B, but it was a lot windier road than it sounds in terms of experimenting with what exactly was going on. So you know, actually, I think the last time we had a really big fight about it, it was because of this show, because I said something on this show about my life or a situation that happened, and like she didn't understand where I was coming from, or like misunderstood something that I said, and then just like called me and left this like really crazy voicemail about how like she doesn't agree with that and this, that, and the other thing. And we got into a huge argument about it. Wow. And then days later, no, I think it was like 2 weeks later that we actually ended up making up, which is probably the longest we ever went without talking. But we were both in our corner sulking, and I was literally like, I need to get to a point of neutrality. Namaste, namaste, namaste. And when we finally were able to talk about it for the first time, I was like, instead of our usual, like, whatever about how I can't take criticism, I invite you to ask me questions about what it is that you thought I said. Because it's really important to me that we actually understand each other, instead of just like bandaging over this with an apology. Like, let's really get in there and dissect it, because it's, there's no like bypassing these things when it comes to like really forming a connection and like rewiring the way that it's always been.
Absolutely. And the fact that you're both on board with this type of communication, right? And allow yourself the platform to discuss it and dissect it. That's amazing in and of itself, because very often I think people who are having these kinds of conflicts are, you know, one may want to talk about it, the other may not, because they want to still be right, no matter what.
It takes a consciousness. But since we all talked about our mothers, Juji, one of the funniest things you ever said to me, and I don't know if we mentioned on the show, we were walking where I live, and you said, if it's not one thing, it's your mother.
Can we rename this to Mother Triggers?
No, but I
we love you, moms.
We
do. We love you.
The one thing
I don't even know what shape I just did.
Kind of a blob. No, I think it's really important. It suddenly dawned on me that triggers can also be constructive when, for example, for me, understanding what gaslighting is, but not realizing that I was being gaslighted. Now, when stuff like that happens, it triggers in me going, oh, this is what's happening right now. And you don't have to respond the way you used to. You can respond this way. So it's a very empowering thing when you're aware of sometimes the shit that goes on when you used to get sucked into the conversation and defend yourself and people please and do all that crazy stuff. But now I'm able to go, oh, I know what that is now. And I'm not going to be a victim, and I'm not going to respond in any way that's going to make this go down a rabbit hole. So
yeah,
that's been hugely freeing for me.
Positive trigger in this case.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add one more thing. I love that you said that, Shira, because when I think of my triggers, and especially the one where, I'll feel stupid. Now I'll either be aware of it, like there's an awareness there that was never there, which is key. So awareness is always key. Oh. But also in the response, and you did the whole, love that, because I used to always just like you, Juge, like just kind of react and yell and fight. And now I just say things like, if somebody says something that does hurt my feelings or produces those emotions in me, I'll just say, wow, that really hurts my feelings. And just those words are so freaking powerful, because I'm calm and I'm aware and I'm just expressing how I feel. And now they know how I feel. And it's very empowering to just say something as simple as that, and to not allow it to help produce this monster out of you. Yeah, totally. So anyway, just wanted to express that.
You guys, we have a lot of things to say about triggers, but I do think this is a good place to wrap. We hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao for now.
Love you, girls.